before we jump into all that, let's say our mission statement together as a church. If you don't know it, it's on the screen. It's saying this Journey Church, we're here to see the kingdom of God in Victoria as it is in heaven. All right, now give yourselves a hand because you sound great. You participated, so you get a trophy. But we've talked the past couple of weeks about this and what the table represents, what the table means, what these chairs are. You know, we talked about the different chairs at the table. And when we talk about the table, we're using this as a metaphor. We're using this as both a real and literal term, but also as a like spiritual and not so little term as well. And so what we said was the table is the church. It's the place where people come to be fed, right? And so the table is the church. The meal is Jesus, the bread of life. We feast on his truth. We feast on the gospel. We feast on who he is. And I'm really just the dude with the food. So I'm not anything super, super special. I'm just the guy passing out the bread and entertaining you guys with my entertaining self. But we all have a place at the table. And that was so important for us to realize is that, yes, we do. No matter where we are, there is a place for us. It just may be a different place than someone else's place. And that's not a bad thing. It's just we are in different places. So that first chair we talked about was for the non-believer. I'm not sure about this, but I want to come and see what God's about. Come and see what the church is about. Like, you actually do belong and have a place at the table. You belong in church. Even if you've never gone to church before in your life, or you went and then you quit going for whatever reason, and you've got issues and you've got all kinds of things built up and going on, that's okay. You still belong. You just belong in a certain chair, and we're here to help you move from one to the next. And we talked about upgrading our chair from that first chair to that second chair. Like, I made that decision. I trusted and gave my life to Jesus. I made Jesus my Savior by accepting his free gift of grace and salvation for me, the payment for my sins. Like, I'm going to believe that you did that, Jesus, and I'm going to receive that for myself. And so we moved to that second chair. And sometimes that second chair is where a lot of us get stuck. And we see a lot of people live like a very long time in that chair because they're like, well, I believe, but like, there's still a lot of stuff, and I don't want to stretch myself. I don't want to step out of my comfort zone. I don't want to grow. I don't want to do anything that I don't want to do. So, and don't try to put rules on me because I believed in the free gift of grace. So I don't want to accept any other kind of change in my life. And so we stay stuck in this second chair of just kind of immature Christianity. We're never able to feed ourselves. And it's another reason why a lot of times we get kind of restless in some places and we get upset at a person, and so we just, well, forget the church, I'll just do this on my own. But you never learn to feed yourself on your own. So you leave the church, you leave the table, and then you starve because you don't know how to feed yourself because you refused to let someone teach you how to feed yourself, right? And so we talk about that. And then for those who just, man, you push through. And it's a badge of honor to say, man, I've worked through these things, I've gone past this, and now I'm in this third chair where I am a mature Christian, a mature believer, and like, man, I've made it, I've arrived. And unfortunately, a lot of us get there and we're like, I made it, I arrived, and we think that means we retired, right? And so we just live off of the residual income of Christianity. No, like, you're not done. In fact, your job has just changed. Instead of always focusing on me, I need to feed myself, feed me some more, we start looking and saying, you know what, God? You've taught me how to feed myself. I've received a lot. I need to give a lot. I need to show others how to do this. The third chair should not be this anointed chair of the few. Our goal is to see many come and receive the same growth too. So my job is to give. My job is to serve. My job is to sow. My job is to speak and teach and build relationships with others. And so when we look at a table, and this is my table. This is a table that came from my house. Now, how many of y'all grew up eating around a table with your family? Anybody grow up like that? Just me and a few bunch. Okay, awesome. It's cool, right? It was a good thing. Whether you liked it or not, it was kind of a cool experience. Growing up, we always sat and ate at a table at our house, at my parents' house. So now Tara and I, our kids, our family, it's hit or miss. Like, obviously, as you can see, this is my table. I'm not fancy. I don't have more than one dining room. I don't think I even have a dining room. I just have an area where I put this table in the house. We don't have multiple tables. So that means for the past almost month now, I have not had a table at my house. I just have 2 benches where they used to go for this table. But it's not missed that much because we don't always sit around the table and eat. It's just not always logistically the most convenient thing. So a lot of times we eat at the coffee table, or at the side table, or at the roadhouse table. And that's okay. Maybe you go with your family and y'all eat out a lot, right? And that's totally cool. Like, that's cool. If you can do that and you like doing it, that's awesome. It's okay. I know some things have changed, but there's something about the table and eating and living and being at the table. Because the table, as we said, is not just an actual table, but we're talking about the church. And so I want to look at what the table is and what is this church and why it's important and what our roles are here at the table. So, first of all, we need to realize that the table is a place for family. That's how we see this, right? Like, we grew up, we sat around a table with our family. And yeah, there may be a guest here and there. There may be an extra person, a friend or something. But you knew that always took it to the next level when you were invited to someone's house and you were able to stay for dinner. And you sat at the table with them. Like, that was a different kind of feeling. Like, oh, I just stepped into another level of friendship, of relationship, because now I'm a part of something that I instinctively know is for their family. And some people may have made you feel a little and some people may have really just wrapped their arms around you, and maybe you remember some people that really brought you in. But either way, what happens a lot of times when you're at the table with your family and someone who's not quite family at the moment, or not literal family, comes and they sit at the table, you tend to defer to that guest. You tend to serve that person. You tend to look and say, hey, this is what we do and how we do it. Let me help you. Let me go get you a cup. Let me get you a plate. Do you need some more tea? Do you need something else to drink? Here, why don't you have your plate first, and then we'll wait and we'll serve ourselves our food as well. But the table is a place for family. And one of the cool things that happens at the table is conversation. Usually. If you have teenagers, maybe not. But you try, and you should keep trying. Right? But that's what, I remember doing that growing up. We sat around the table and we talked. So how was your day? I don't know. How was your day? Was it a good day or was it a bad day? I don't know. What kind of day was it? Right? So we would go off and we would talk about our day, right? And then you would, and my mom and dad, Steven, how was school? Good. Okay. Anything exciting? No. All right. Did you get in trouble? No. Right? So we just, we had great, deep conversation like this. But my parents would talk about this stuff, and they would talk, and they would talk to us, and we would talk about different things. And of course, my family, there was always a lot of church talk going around because that was just our life. And so there'd be a lot of stuff talking about families and church and people. And because my dad was a pastor, so he would talk about church stuff. And then my parents would speak in Spanish to each other, which meant they didn't want what they were saying to be repeated in any way because we didn't understand Espanol. And so they just didn't teach us, right? I get all kinds of weird looks from fellow brown people when they see me and expect me to learn and understand what they're saying. I'm like, I'm sorry I failed you, but my parents did not teach me. And I did not learn to feed myself Espanol. And so I know very, very little, but they would use that to talk about us or about other people. And then if we had a guest at the table, like one of my friends or something came to eat and hang out, or we're in the car, so my dad would always make a point to do what he thought was hilarious, which was speak and say a bunch of stuff in Spanish and then say their name really clear and loud in English and then go back to Spanish. Cameron, but they told him, just don't ignore him, just don't, right? So, just try to mess with people. But the table is a place for family, and conversation is crucial. In your family, conversation and communication is crucial. You need to be able to talk, and that's a great place. Maybe that table's not that place for you, but you should have a place to do that. Tara and I, a lot of times, we just look for opportunities to ride in the same car together. Because I'm like, I want to talk to you. I haven't seen you all day. We had stuff to talk about, right? So like the other day, we were driving around, and she was going to go back home to do some things, some horizontal thinking, and I was going to come back here to church to do some manly man work, and our kids were gone. They're with family right now, and so I was like, but hey, you know what? I need to go to Lowe's. Do you want to ride with me so we can talk on the way there and back? And she's like, I mean, I guess. And so reluctantly, she got in the car, and we drove, and we were able to talk about stuff and just catch up, right? And what will happen now, today was rare. Today was the first time in probably years Tara and I actually rode together to church. Because, yeah, that was cool. Because I didn't have to get here super early with the trailer to unload and all that kind of stuff. And then we didn't have the kids, so it was easy to kind of get going. So I was like, when are you going to leave? Yeah, it's a little later than I wanted, but I guess I could do that because there's nothing for me to do. And so we rode together, so that was fun. So we were able to talk. But normally what will happen on a Sunday, when you guys all leave and we're walking around, we're shutting stuff off and closing things up, we'll leave and I'll say, okay, I'll call you. And so she gets in her car and she drives off, and I get in my truck and I call her, and we just talk to each other on our way to our house. And so we try to find these areas and these times. And we're with our kids around the table, whether it's at home or somewhere else. When we go out to eat, we sit on a table and we talk and we ask them questions and we just communicate with each other, because that's an important and vital part of the family. And it's also an important and vital part of what happens at the church. We need to communicate with each other. Church, the table, is not a place for you to come and sit and only listen. It's a place for you to come and sit and have conversation, to speak to one another, to talk to each other, to talk to me. That's why we're working on creating different elements out in our spaces where we can hang out, where we can just speak to one another, where we can sit down and have a conversation, where we can go have some coffee and have a conversation, where we can get around and mingle and meet with each other, so we can come early just to talk to people and stay a few minutes late if we wanted to, just to talk to people that you haven't seen in a while, or to get to know someone else that is new. And that's where these, knowing your place is so important, because if you're a chair 2 person, you need to be reaching out and seeking out chair 1 people and talking to them. Now, don't do it in a way where you walk up to them and say, hey, listen, I know you're just in chair 1 and I'm in chair 2. So I'm your buddy, all right? I'm your big brother, your big sister. We don't need to do all that. That's kind of demeaning. But just finding relationships, that'll naturally happen, right? You'll get to know someone and you'll be like, you know what? They're a little bit further on in their walk, and I want to hang out with them and learn from them. And I want to just kind of be around them. And same thing, chair 2 people, you look at others and you're like, man, this person is so solid in their walk. They're so don't be intimidated by that. Go talk to them. And if you know you're one of those people, if you've been following God for 10, 20 something years, and you know you're not perfect, but you know you're solid, you know you don't struggle with early Christian life things, you don't crawl, you walk, you're okay, you know that kind of, and you know that you are, you know who you are. Don't allow yourself to be so intimidating to others that they can't reach out to you. Maybe you take that first, you take that initiative. You go to someone and say, hey, so what's going on? How you been? How you doing? I'm so-and-so. Get to know them. It's a place to talk. Communication is crucial. We should never come to the table and feel like we're not a part of a family. We should never come to a table. You would not have a guest come to your house and invite them to have dinner at your table and then treat them cold and treat them like an outsider and make them feel awkward. You wouldn't. Well, some people have done it. You probably maybe you've been someone came at the wrong family night. You know what I'm saying? You're like, that person, they're like, oh my God, I want to leave, right? No, but maybe it's not something we do intentionally. We're you invite someone over and you're just you don't tell them where the bathroom is. You don't ask them if they want something to drink, so they're sitting there wondering, can I go to the fridge? Can I not? Should I ask? I don't know. And you don't offer them food. You just expect them to do everything, to know what to do in your house. They don't know what to do in your house. They've never been there. They don't know where the forks are. They don't know where the napkins are. They don't know what you do. Do you pray before you eat? Do you do your own silent kind of prayer before you eat? Everyone assumes they did and whatever. They don't know, right? You wouldn't do that intentionally to someone. So we shouldn't do that intentionally to people that walk through the doors. If someone new walks in, you don't all stare at them like, who are you? Where'd you come from? No, they belong. The fact that they came to the table means that they belong, and we should treat them as such. And so we reach out to people. That communication is so crucial. We need to share our stories. God's done something in your life. You shouldn't be the only one that knows about it. God's healed you. You shouldn't be the only one that knows about that. God has forgiven you in a big way and you know it. You shouldn't be the only one that knows about that. In fact, we're going to do a sermon series in a few months that is going to do just that. We're going to highlight people's stories. We're going to find people, and maybe you're one of those people, and I don't even know about it. You're like, man, I've got a crazy story. God's done some really cool stuff. Let us know, because we're going to talk about it. We're going to film it. We're going to let other people see it, and we're going to see what God's done through you and see how God can use your story to change someone else's life. But that should be everyday life. Don't wait for a once-a-year sermon series on our stories. We should do that for others. Because really there's only going to be like maybe 4 people. But there's more than 4 people here with a story of what God's done in their life. So share those stories. You shouldn't be the only one that knows that. I love to talk about me and Tara because we're so beautiful. No, I love to talk about our story because it's so beautiful. And I love to talk about what God has done in our lives and how God brought us together. And many of y'all have heard it over and over. And sometimes I talk about it and Tara's like, okay, Steven, I have to tell them every single detail of everything that happened. And I'm like, no, I do, because every detail is important and it's awesome, especially the ones that have to do with me. And so I think it's really awesome how much trouble God went through to make sure that I had what I needed and I had the right person, and how much work he went into in trying to make Tara the right person so she would be worthy. So share your stories. And I won't go through in the details of our story today, but maybe another day. But conversation is crucial. Second, at the table, we talked about this a little bit last week, but manners matter. Right? Like I talked about how we grow up, we grow out of certain things. Like my little boy the other day, we're trying to have a nice fancy family lunch at Le Wendy's, and we're sitting there eating. All of a sudden, Judah's like burp, like this loud, enormous burp, and like I just looked at him, I was like, seriously, dude? He's like, what? I said excuse me because he did say excuse me. I'm just like, yeah, it doesn't matter though. Like, you didn't have to do that. You don't have to always push it out like that. And Tara's like, really, Steven? I'm like, not right now, Tara. Okay, not right now. Son, you don't have to do that. And he's like, oh, I didn't know. I'm sorry. And I'm like, you didn't know? I was like, dude, you're not a baby anymore. You know better, so you need to do better. And that's how we are as believers. At some point, we're like, I used to be proud when he was a baby. I mean, I'm still proud. I don't care. But, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, when he was a baby, he did that in the hospital when he was born. The nurse was like, wow. And I was like, proud pop, like, I made that. I made that big burping machine. And I'm like, that's my boy. And now it's kind of like, son, can you keep it down a little bit? Like, can y'all keep the bodily functions to ourselves when we're in public, please? And so, like, you grow out of some of that stuff. So as believers, we grow out of things as well. It's not about rules. It's about accepting where you are and now living as such. When you know what God has done, when God has set you free from something, don't keep running back to it just because you can. Be free from it. Live free from it. Make that choice. Make that decision to not stay stuck in that place, because you don't have to be. You've grown past that. You know better than that. So our manners matter, but it's not just about doing right things and doing good things. In the church, in the body, there should also be a culture of gratitude, a culture of thankfulness a culture of honor. We should give honor to those that where honor is due. We should respect those that we should respect. We should respect each other. We should learn to give thanks to God. It's something I think we understand, but we rarely do. We go to God with our problems. We go to God for answers. We go to God frustrated, and that's all fine. But do we ever go to God with a thankful heart? Do we ever go to God with thanksgiving? Do we ever come back to Him after He has done what we asked Him to do to thank Him? You know, there's a story when Jesus healed some people, and a group of them all left, and they were all healed, but one of them came back to say thank you. And Jesus is like, weren't the others healed too? But only one comes back to give thanks. And I think we have to learn that attitude. You know, the Bible says that we should enter into His courts with complaining. No, we enter into His courts with thanksgiving, right? And into His courts with praise, right? So we should have this attitude of, hey, when I'm coming to God, regardless of what's going on, I need to be able to find thankfulness in my heart. I need to be able to find an attitude of praise towards Him in my heart. Because if I can't be thankful to Him, if I can't find a reason to give praise to Him, then do I really trust in Him for what I'm asking? I'm really demanding more than I'm asking. And like, as a parent, do you want your kid coming to you being like, look, Dad, this is what I need for Christmas, okay? I really want this, and I need you to do it. Like, if you're my dad and you love me, you would do it. Like, you might still do that for them after you smack them, but like, that doesn't make your heart feel nice and warm and fuzzy, does it? It doesn't. Now, the other day, my parents, I don't know what happened to them. They were very good parents, very strict parents. I grew up with the chancla. I grew up with the belt. You know what I'm saying? These belts had names. There was the electric belt. There was the Goliath belt. These were names we gave them. I still I have like PTSD from hearing like a belt snap. You know what I'm talking about? If I ever hear that sound, I'm like, you know, where is he? Right? Like I just hear it echoing through the halls of my home. I'm just like, oh God, right? And so this is my life, guys. This is what I grew up with, and it wasn't like, you know, my dad worked, and my mom was home with us, and so my brother and I. It was mainly me and my brother growing up because our sisters were older, so by the time we were like not even teenagers, they were like out of the house. So it was mainly me and my brother. So, you know, brothers fight. We're 4 years apart, so there's a lot of fighting with that kind of gap a lot of times. So we argued, we fought, we got into stuff with each other, whatever. And you know, so my mom would come in and, you know, give the chocolate, pop, pop. You know, after a while, you're kind of like, okay. You know what I mean? Because she's little. She's like 5 foot, flat. You know what I mean? She's a little Puerto Rican, but she's crazy too. But, you know, and she has like a small foot. Like seriously, like I think she wears like a 4 or a 5, like shoe. Like she wears kids' shoes. Like Judah's shoes fit her, legit. So like it's a little chocolate, you know what I mean? And so she would smack us and we'd be like, oh, okay, Mom. You know, but what was sorry is when Dad would come home, she would still tell Dad what happened, and he would still come back and deliver his punishment, right? And we'd be like, we already got whooped, but I think he knew it wasn't really enough, and so he did it again. And so this is the family I grew up in. I loved them to death, but probably would be in jail by today's standards, right? Just kidding. But when they had grandkids, when my children were born, even before that, my sister's kids were born, but I really saw when my kids were born, I was like, who are y'all? Like, my mom gives them ice cream for breakfast. They get surprises from the store every day that they're with them. Every day they go and they get little toys and little things. They do whatever they want. My kids have even been able to take my mother out of her room in her bed, and they force her to sleep in the other room with them and force my dad to sleep alone in his room. And they're like, no, Papa, that's your room. This Nana's room's over here with us. And he's like, no. When y'all are gone, Nana sleeps with me in my room. My son was like, I don't like that. He's like, no, that's Nana's room, right? But this is who they are and who they've become. And I don't even remember what that was even all about. Seriously, I don't. I just lost. I'm still being traumatized right now by the belt snap. But they've changed a lot. I really don't know where I was going with that, babe. I have no idea why I was talking about my parents so much, and the kids either. I guess. I don't think I'm there yet, but I don't know. We'll keep going. But seriously, so this is. You just go with it, guys. This is church. This is family. We make fun of each other. So, I grew up in this kind of a home. It was strict, but they've changed quite a bit. Since then, there's this never-ending flow of grace towards my children. Man, I really wish I knew where I was going because I liked it. But so yeah, our manners matter. Who we are, how we act, how we honor and respect. Oh, now I know. I remember. Okay, so the other day, my parents were telling me a story of how they were talking to my kids, because my kids call them all the time. They FaceTime them. And so Ada, our little girl, she's 8 years old, she was talking, and they were asking her, hey, do you have your Christmas list? What do you want for Christmas? And you know, Judah is real specific. He will tell you what he wants, specifically. And then if you say okay, he will hold you to that. And he will check on you. He'll tell you where to get it, how much it is, what you need to do, and then he'll check on you to see if you got it. And sometimes I call my parents and be like, can I see it? Can you show me that you have it? Print the camera around and show me. And they go along with this. I'm like, who are you people? And so, anyway, they were asking them, and then they asked Ada, and she was like, I don't know. Well, do you want anything, something? And she says, whatever y'all get me, I'll be happy with. And she's like, but I like LOL dolls. And then, you know, so my dad heard that, and he was just like, oh my God, she's going to get everything. And he went and bought like this $100-something thing. She's like, I will buy her everything. Because she came to him with a thankful heart. She could have demanded. She could have been like, I want this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And you know what? She probably would have gotten the majority of it. And they'd have been like, okay, baby, thanks. And you know, but when she came to them and were like, you know what, yeah, I want some stuff, but I mean, whatever you want to do, I'm going to be happy with it and thankful for it. It opened something up in his heart where he was like, I'm going right now and I'm buying this little girl as much stuff as I can buy her, right? And so later on, I'm going to call my dad and be like, you know, Dad, whatever kind of new truck you bought me, I'd be happy with. It could be black, it could be gray. As long as it's 4-door and a tundra, I'm good. Right? So I can say, maybe it'll work, it probably won't. But when you're thankful, it opens something up. And I believe it's the same way with God. Not that he can or that he won't or that he's angry at you or that he's like, okay, fine. But it just does open something up in his heart. Thankfulness is not only something we should do, it's a key. It unlocks the heart of God. It really does open him up to want to pour out even more upon us because we're recognizing who he truly is. He's our Father. He's not a distant God. He's not someone we're asking him to prove himself to us. We're finding that relationship with him, that family with him. So, our manners matter. How we behave, how we act at the table matters. Not only for us, but how we do that for others as well. And as y'all know, at the table, at the church, growth does happen. We should leave our chair for another chair. And some of us, we know that at the table of Thanksgiving, growth really does happen. Sometimes more than we want. But at the table that is the church, growth happens. Because here's what happens on that. When we worship, It's not about songs. And yeah, sometimes technical stuff happens. And there's, I didn't like that song too much. And that person messed up here, and blah, blah, this, whatever. Like, it's not about, we're not performing. We're not even coming to do that for you guys. It's just us collectively coming to offer up a thanksgiving sacrifice of worship to God. And when we do that, that's how we build intimacy with the Lord. That's how we build intimacy with God. It's through worship. And sometimes, even in your own time at home, it's how you build that relationship. And it may take you 5 minutes, it may take you 2 hours to get out of your head and just get to where you're focused on Him. But it's worth it. Because when you do that, growth happens. And as a church, as we worship, we are building an intimacy with the Lord as a group, as a family, as a body. And when intimacy happens, reproduction happens. We know that. So it's the same thing spiritually. When we learn to not just come and go through the motions, but we learn to come in and enter into the presence of the Lord to build a relationship with Him, it should reproduce more worshipers, more people coming in to worship God because of who He is. And so when we see that, we see growth happen. So we need to learn to join the family. Who sits at the table? It's not a group of strangers, it's family. It's not a group of random people, it's family. It's not a group of selected, voted people, it's family. Romans 12 says this: just as our bodies have many parts and each part has a special function, so it is with Christ's body. We are many parts of one body, and we all belong to each other. In His grace, God has given us different gifts for doing certain things well. So if God has given you the ability to prophesy, speak out with as much faith as God has given you. If your gift is serving others, serve them well. If you're a teacher, teach well. If your gift is to encourage others, be encouraging. If it is giving, give generously. If God has given you leadership ability, take the responsibility seriously. And if you have a gift for showing kindness to others, do it gladly. So, I'm taking a little bit of a turn here, but here's what I want to catch up, because I want to wrap this up quick. We as members of the body of Christ, we have different roles. And they're all crucial. And they're all beautiful. And they're all needed. But they are what they are. It doesn't say, if you're a gifted teacher, learn to serve better, because it'll make you a better teacher if you'll serve more. No, if you have a gift to serve, strive to be on stage more, because you're behind the scenes enough as is. You deserve to be in the spotlight. No, if God has given you a gift to serve, then serve. Serve well. If God has given you the ability to lead, take the responsibility seriously. Now, this is one that gets me, because there's a lot of times, and I was talking to some people the other day, and talking to someone in particular that was talking about just the church, and I'm thinking about this person, they're not super involved, they're nothing bad. A lot of reasons for not being necessarily connected in a specific body all the time. But I know that person is such a great leader. And I'm like, I need to tell them, you know what? You really don't have a choice. It's really not okay for you to sit at home and watch something online in the background, because you're just like, well, that's for me, it works for me. No, you're a leader. People will look up to you. People will follow you. You have something to offer, so you need to offer it. And so many times there's leaders all over the body that are like, I'm a leader, but I'm not the leader, so I guess I'm not going to lead. And so we have bodies full of leaders that are refusing to step up and lead. No, maybe you're not going to be the leader. Maybe you're not the main alpha, but you're still needed. You have leadership. It's a responsibility. There's a reason why you have that gift. Not everyone is gifted to be a strong leader. And that's not a shot at anyone. That's just the truth. God has not called me to be a door greeter because I'm not the greatest at like smiling and being super, like I'm in my head too much. Like I'm a very bad greeter. You know, like there's a lot of things that I will not allow myself to do in the church because I'll do a really bad job of it. There's a lot of people that do a lot of those things better. I can organize stuff all kinds of ways, but if I have to. But that's not my best thing. Like I really don't want to be in a spreadsheet. I can, but I don't want to. Like I've done it because I've had to, but it's not my thing. But for someone else, that's probably really your thing. Like you love details. You love figuring out how to make things actually happen. You love chess, putting people in certain places and lining everything up and making sure it all works and doing all that and you calling people and talking. Like that's not me. I'm a vision guy. I'm a big picture. I'm a dreamer. I want to get up and I want to talk about the big vision. I want to get with Rob and Cullen and say, this is what I would just love to see this. And all that. And then be like, but don't ask me how to do it because I have no idea. And they get a test of that. But I'm like, but this is what I would see. But you tell me if it's possible and how to do it, and I'll let you do it. And then you can tell me what to do. Right? But we all have a gift. We need to learn how to give those gifts as part of the body. You know, I think of it this way, because there's a lot of dismembered members. There's a lot of believers who would say, I'm a Christian, I'm a part of the body of Christ. But they don't belong anywhere. They're not committed anywhere. They're not connected anywhere. They're not serving anywhere. They're not a part of an actual body. It's like, you know, eyes are beautiful. I look into Tara's eyes. I remember one of the first things I noticed about her is that she had these big, bright blue eyes. And I was like, man, that girl is pretty. And I remember having a picture of her on my little flip phone back in the day. It's her MySpace picture. She had these big old bright blue eyes. And I was like, man, hey, this is a girl I'm talking to. Check that out, right? I was a little proud of that, right? You look at people, I look at my kids, you probably look at your kids, and you're just like, Terry used to tell me, you have very kind eyes. And I think that's a way, I think that was like her way of saying, like, you're not that attractive, but I think you're a nice guy. You got a great personality, Steven. I'm going to give you a shot with your kind eyes. But we look at eyes, we're like, oh, my baby's beautiful eyes, right? Have you ever seen an eye that's not currently in the body? You're like, oh, it's gross, right? Like, it's nasty. And hopefully you have it in real life, but pictures in movies, right? Like, that's weird, unless you're a doctor or something. But it's like, it's scary. When you think of eyes that are not in a person, you think of something scary. That's what you do, like, in scary time. Because it's a member of the body that is currently dismembered. And that's what we are a lot of times as believers. We're just plopped out of the body, plucked away from the body, and we're out here walking around like, I'm a good Christian, and it was just like, dude, you need to get connected because you got a trail of some nasty stuff going on. And it's getting worse and worse, right? It doesn't get any better. The freshness leaves, and then the decay happens, and that's what happens to us spiritually. We have to be connected with the body. That's what a member is supposed to be, connected to the body. Now, I'm going to read this in Acts, and I'm going to close with this. Acts 2:42. Now all the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the fellowship and to the sharing of meals, including the Lord's Supper and to prayer. A deep sense of awe came over them all, and the apostles performed many miraculous signs and wonders. And all the believers met together in one place and shared everything that they had. They sold their property and possessions. They shared the money with those in need. They worshiped together at the temple each day. They met in homes for the Lord's Supper. They shared their meals with great joy and generosity. And all the while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of all the people. And each day the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. Now, I read that because I want us to have the proper picture of what the body of Christ, what the church is supposed to be. This table, what it's supposed to be. It's a very popular way of thinking and thought amongst believers and even non-believers who just don't want to be believers. This is their excuse. that the church is, it's not supposed to be any kind of structured, ordered anything. It's just, remember the early church, they just met in the home, and there's this real hippie mindset, like we just want to walk around barefoot, eating in each other's houses, and just doing life, and there is no church. What is the church? We are the church. Right? We get all like in our head. It's like calm down, Dalai Lama. Like, read the Bible, okay? Did they meet in each other's homes? Yes. They built like a community. They got rid of everything that wasn't about each other, and they brought it all together so they could do life with one another. So they could what? Devote themselves to the teaching of the apostles and to the fellowship. So they could come together and meet and praise and worship. And then when they were done with that, they were like, okay, we got to go, but let's take this with us. So they would go to each other's homes, and that's where they had their small groups and their lunches and their dinners and their life and all their other little ministries and groups that are all good and all great, but it was still part of the church. It was still part of the body. And some people even say that early church grew to the tens of thousands of people that would at times gather together at once to worship and praise and share and learn from the teaching of others. And we want to take that, and so many times we want to just throw it all away because it's not perfect. I don't want to belong to a church. I don't want to be in a church. I don't have to go to church. I can have church at home. Well, sure you can, but the fact that you're saying that, I bet you you're not. Like, you can say that all day long, but I mean, I guess I can't call you on it unless I'm there with you, but I'll put some money on it that you're not doing anything. It's just an excuse to not have to belong. I want to be dismembered. I'd rather be an eyeball. I can walk on my own. I don't need legs to walk. I'm an eyeball. No, you need legs, eyeball. You can see what you're doing, but you can't do nothing because you don't have anything but an eye. We belong to a body. And if the early church, those early believers, those apostles, those teachers, man, if they could have what we have today, they would die to be able to have what we are able to have today. In fact, they did. They did. So that you and I could come and gather together, use what we have to reach more people, to bring them in, to have this lifestyle of we are a body. We're going to come together and give God our praise, give God our thanks. We're going to come together at the table. We're going to eat. We're going to feast on the Word of God. We're going to feast on Jesus, the bread of life. We're going to grow with each other. I'm going to help you grow because I've been where you've been, and they're going to help me grow because they've been where I've been, and we're going to do life together. And when we go home, I'm still going to check on you later because I love you even outside of this building. And what we learn is that when believers act like family, God grows the church. When believers live like family, like we're not just strangers, that we're not just judging each other or competing with one another, but we're family. When we live like we love one another, like we would lay our lives down for one another, God is the one that grows the family. So our focus is simply, let's come to the table. Let's invite people to the table. And let's feast. And let's live as family. Let's pray.